Welcome to the newest Anecdotes Live session, and I am so excited to have Ben Lowe join us. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna be talking about the environment and his research, and then also about our role in taking care of this earth that we live on. Let me see. So now I'm just looking for Ben so I can add him to the call. I really hope this is a really encouraging conversation. Hold on. Hi, everybody. Right on. Welcome to the newest Anecdotes Live. I know it's going to be an awesome conversation with my friend Ben. Hey, Ben. Awesome. So I'm going to add you to the call. And then, there. Send. I'm excited. Ben is so good. Hey!
It worked. Wow.
Oh, now you're
Okay.
sideways.
Yeah, no. I'm just trying. Okay, we're just gonna do this. Okay. Whew.
Look
Good
at
to see
you.
you.
You too. You're like,
Uh,
oh no, technology. Come
I
on.
know that's precisely it. Everybody's like, "Aren't you a millennial?" I'm like, I read too much Wendell Berry. To me, technology is a pencil.
Yo, my technology is a pencil. Oh man. Well, I totally approve of Wendell Berry.
Mm, yes,
So props to you for actually
thank
reading
you.
the good stuff.
Well, any instructions or tips you have for me before I mess this up halfway through?
Just don't go sideways. And then like so also I don't know if you have anything to prop up your phone so you can just relax and not hold it.
Yeah, well, that's why I was gonna go sideways because I've got my cord coming out of the bottom.
Oh yeah.
It's okay. No,
Okay.
maybe that works. Maybe that works.
All right. If you suddenly just drop, that's cool. We'll just roll with it.
Sounds
Welcome to
good.
the 2020, man, where people have been doing this for a while.
Yeah, some people.
Okay. Yesterday I met this like incredible young woman. She's a student at Biola.
Okay.
She's now 20. She's an influencer.
Cool.
She peaked at 16. She started at 12
Oh my goodness.
helping students get organized and just helping them figure out how to organize their lives and their study and their time
Mm-hmm.
management and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And she had like hundreds of thousands of followers.
Whoa.
So she was helping us on social media a little bit, and she was, you know, really good. So I was like, wow. And then she peaked at 16. So I was like, you did that for at least 4 years, like as a 12-year-old.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway,
Wow, that's intense. Nope, different life experience there.
and then I'm like, oh no, I'm like a million times older than I'm like I'm a has-been. I'm like
Yeah.
I should
Well,
just
see, and if it's like someone from the digital generation or whatever is that's Gen Z, right? Or whatever the number is after us. Um, I was like, okay, well, they're gonna know more than me, and they're gonna just it's gonna come more naturally. I'm not even gonna try to feel like competent next to them. But then when it's like people in my parents and grandparents' generations who do more than me, I'm like, oh no.
you know, I hear that. One time we went hiking up the Rocky Mountains, a bunch of us university students, and when you go hiking in the Rockies, just west of Calgary,
Mm.
it's a
Oh,
day.
those Rockies.
Oh yeah, like the good ones. Sorry, no shade, but it's an 8 hour, like 4 hours up, and then this weather changes. As you're
Oh,
going up,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
it
mm-hmm.
started snowing at the top, and it was June. So we were putting on our clothes, like
Oh
scarves and
gosh.
everything. We had lunch. It was blizzarding at the top, and we like hiked down for another 4 hours, and it stopped snowing. So we started like, so that's what we mean about hiking. When you go to Calgary, you're like, hey, you want to go for a hike? You bring stuff in case you're stuck overnight.
Mm, gee.
So here we are, university students. These like older people, seriously, like with the walking sticks, past
Yep,
us.
yep. Oh no.
They're like twice, right? Because they stop you fast and we're like, hi, and then they just like,
Yep. Yeah, which, says something about training and experience.
mm,
Whether you're trying to use Instagram Live or hiking a mountain or running a country, you need
oh,
training and experience.
oh snap. Well, congratulations.
We'll see. Well, I mean, yeah, we still got a little bit before we get to the next administration. Lots of things are being done right now.
That's right. And you do
But,
live in Florida.
and I do live in Florida, so when you were talking about hiking in the Rockies and you were throwing shade on our Rockies, I'm like, well, I live in Florida. Like our highest elevation here are buildings,
Oh,
and they're not
yeah.
even particularly high
Oh my
buildings
God.
either. Because I come from
That's,
Singapore where we have skyscrapers.
oh, yes.
Florida,
So I moved to Toronto and then I went to the city close by, Hamilton. Sorry, Hamilton. And then I was asking for directions because, like, just didn't want to check out Google Maps. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's up mountain. It's a cliff. And I was like, I'm like, awesome. Thank you so much. And I left. I'm like, hee, that's amazing. That's not a mountain. That's not a mountain. Anyway.
yeah, yeah,
Anyway. So hi, welcome, Ben. I'm so glad. Thank you so much for your time.
yeah. It's good to catch up with you. And actually, I don't think you mentioned that you thought we met for the first time in person at the night safari in
Yeah.
Singapore. Which was a crazy, random, fun time, and I was jet lagged and trying to stay awake, but it was totally worth it. I think we met at Urbana when you were running the seminars, but you would have
Yes.
been interacting with thousands
Oh.
of people, literally.
Oh, yeah.
And I was one of the seminar speakers, and I
Oh,
remember no, but you, because I had to arrive late after the full orientation wasn't, so there was like
yes.
extra orientation for some of us.
Yes.
And I just remember thinking, wow, this person really has it together. Like, how are they met? I was very impressed at your
Oh, thank
ability
you.
to run logistics.
Thank
So
you.
that
Thank
left an
you.
impression.
Oh, thank you. Well, that was a fun one. So, yeah, I was in charge of the whole afternoon. So, anything and
Mm.
everything. So, 200 seminars in the afternoon. Over 3 days for 16,000 people. And then also, I was overseeing and supervising 23 teams of staff.
Wow. Oh,
23 teams of staff. So,
yeah.
the lounges, all the tracks, yeah, and also 100 seminar assistants.
And technology for every
And
single one of
technology
them,
and a
right?
hackathon.
Oh gosh. See, that's
So,
another one of those things where like I've heard about that, but
oh
what is
no,
that? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we should
I
chat
spend
more
as
later.
little time on technology as I possibly can.
Well, but I really appreciate your life choices
Oh,
because,
thanks.
well, I love kayaking. Do you own one?
I do. I own two
Wow,
kayaks.
two
I've
kayaks.
yeah, and I'm one of those weird people that measures expenses in terms of how many kayaks that would cost. So I'm like,
Oh,
oh no, I need to save up for a new car. Well, how many kayaks could I buy for that amount? And anyway, every major life, like not every obviously, but at certain major life points, I've rewarded myself with a kayak.
wow.
So
Okay.
and I was looking for a canoe right before the pandemic really broke
Oh,
out across America, and there were some great options because I always buy these things used.
yeah.
And I'm looking like, and then the pandemic breaks out. Everybody's
Oh,
isolated at home, and all of a sudden, all of the used boats just fly off the market like
oh,
that. Like
like
everybody's looking for outdoor things to
they need
do.
to get out, right?
Exactly. So it's not a great, if anyone's interested, here's a free tip. It's not a great time to try to buy a
No.
used watercraft online. But yeah, no, I have a couple kayaks. I keep them in my poor parents' garage
Oh,
in South Florida where they're retired. And
well,
it's about
that's
a
nice.
mile from the water. And so I can just throw one in the trunk and it sticks out like 8 feet from the trunk. It's ridiculous. And then I just drive it down the street and throw it in the
Oh my,
water.
okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
So then that brings up the question, what life experiences did you celebrate by buying your kayaks?
Oh, that's a good question. Now I have to remember. Well, I can tell you one, um, although I'm always a little hesitant to talk too much about it for different reasons. It's just a long time ago. When I finished running for Congress, when that campaign ended. It was a really, I am not, my
Wow.
personality is not suited to electoral politics as a candidate. I
Wow.
don't appreciate being the face and the spot in the spotlight. So anyway,
Wow.
that was a very hard year for me. I grew a ton.
Oh,
It
wow.
was wonderful, but I promised myself, when this is all over, I'm gonna invest in a kayak and I'm gonna get out on the water and just
Yeah.
paddle my problems away for a little
You and
bit.
the fish.
Me and the fish. Fish,
Amazing.
yep, fish don't challenge. Well, sometimes they can be pretty challenging. I got spined by a couple fish yesterday,
Ouch.
but that was my fault. If I leave them
Oh.
alone, they typically leave me alone. Anyway, so anyway, that's when I got my first kayak, which I wanted for years, because then you can explore the water.
I
When
love
you're on
kayaking.
foot, you're just limited.
Yes. Well,
So
in
that was the
Florida.
first one. The second one, I don't even remember what the second one was. I think it was when I left my last job and took a sabbatical before starting grad school. That was probably when I got, because I knew I was moving to Florida for grad school. So
Mhm.
the problem with only having one kayak is none of my friends could come kayaking with me.
Yes.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to invest in another kayak. And I think I rewarded myself, because that was like 10 years in the nonprofit sector working with faith communities on environmental challenges. And I was
Oh,
like, that's worth another kayak. And they're used kayaks, so I don't feel like, I'm going out
that's
and
perfect.
spending a ton of money. Exactly. So now I have two kayaks.
Upcycling and,
Yep. Yep.
being good to the environment while getting out into the water, which is amazing.
Exactly.
So I want to say hi to Ryan and Rohadi. Awesome, welcome. And I think Jess was here. At least I don't know if she's still on. But anyway, so I would love for you to introduce yourself and who are you?
Sure.
What are you doing?
And why do I talk so much about kayaks? So I am a doctoral candidate at the University of Florida. I'm studying the human dimensions of environmental change,
Wow.
which is, I know, that's the best that I've come in terms of boiling down, talking about what I study. Academics are horrible at this, and I find myself inevitably becoming more of an academic the longer I'm in grad school, where I
Uh-oh.
used to have simple answers for things, and now they just get really wordy. So I study how people perceive and respond to problems like climate change,
Mm,
but I do the human side of it.
hmm.
And that really came about because I love fish, and I always, for some, I can't explain it, but a lot of people are fanatical birders, and I'm a fanatical fish person.
Wow.
But it very quickly became apparent to me that if I'm gonna work with fish and
Hmm.
protecting and conserving fish,
Hmm.
then I needed to actually work with people and human communities.
Mm.
So
Yeah. The problem,
that's
the issue of the problem, the source of the
yeah.
problem? Yeah,
Yeah, in a lot of these
potentially.
cases, I mean,
Mhm.
fish just want to be fish. They just do fish things. They think fish thoughts. I mean, they're pretty, well, fishy, sorry. But then it's really people that you have to understand, and behavior, and how to influence and shape attitudes and things like that. So then I went into the human dimensions. But my background is in environmental biology, and I'm originally from Singapore, like I mentioned. Came to the United States with my family when I was 16, so I've been here a while now.
Wow.
Long enough that when I go back to Singapore, I'm like, what is this place?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
what did they
good.
do to my home?
Uh-oh.
It changes so quickly. Anyway, yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I don't know if there's anything else in particular you want me to cover there.
Oh no, that's awesome. But I do have questions. It's
Undoubtedly.
awesome because, like, obviously in Urbana we weren't able to chat,
Right,
and
yeah.
then the
And
zoo
even at the
is,
Lausanne thing,
dude.
that
It
was
was
a bit
crazy.
intense too.
That was a little intense. But then also Singapore, you were jet lagged, but it was
Hmm.
so fun
Hmm.
going to the zoo. I'm
Yeah.
amazed at that zoo.
Yeah. Did you get to go to the regular zoo, the day zoo?
No.
Oh, it's really cool
Is
too.
it good? Oh
Yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I would
Next time.
love to go back.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be amazing. And the food. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yeah, there was a position that I'm starting to look toward jobs
Mhm.
as I'm graduating in another year or so.
Oh wow.
And there was a position that was opening up in Singapore for
Yes.
something that I would fit really well for. And those don't come along very often. I thought, Singapore, oh my gosh, I could go back. And
Yeah.
then I realized, oh no, if I went back to Singapore, think of all the food I would eat. Like I would have to get much more serious about some sort of exercise fitness regimen in order to stay at all
Ah,
healthy.
well, you'd walk around a lot more, probably. Singapore.
And sweat constantly. So maybe that. Yeah, I never had trouble staying in shape when I was in Singapore.
Yeah.
But it was when I came to this country, like with many people who come to America,
Hmm.
that I started to, I don't know, just the amount of ice cream we eat here.
Ooh, well, if you're going to do it, go for ice cream. I mean,
Hmm,
that stuff is
hmm.
good. That is
Yeah.
awesome. Well, congratulations, almost one more year.
Yeah. Yeah. So 1 to 2 years. I have 2 years worth of funding, but I could graduate in a year. But, the job market is not the best
Mm.
these days, so it might take some time to figure out what's next. So I'm grateful for the flexibility.
And also coming up to Canada.
Yes, which as soon as it's responsible to travel again, then
Yes.
absolutely.
And as soon as the
Uh,
borders open.
oh yeah, that detail too. I know. No, no, no. I've got so our incoming chair of the board for Russia International, which I serve on, is based on Vancouver Island, and I've always wanted to visit Vancouver Island and
You're
get to
gonna
know.
die.
I know. So they've even said that I'm totally welcome to come, and I'm going to take them up on it. I think they're serious. I think they mean. I don't think they're just being polite, but we're going to test this.
Is this confidential information or who is that?
I don't know how confidential it is.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, they start January 1st, which is technically when I roll on too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's not
But
say, but
okay, okay.
I probably know the person. I hope I know the person. That would be
I hope you know
amazing.
the person. Yeah.
Oh, well, I love Vancouver Island. Actually, I went whale
Mm.
watching up there about a year and a half ago.
Oh wow. Did you see whales?
Yeah, and there's
Oh, that's so cool.
like residential like pods of
Oh,
whales and stuff
nice.
like that. And yeah, that's amazing. So to do that when
Wow.
you're there,
Yes.
that's a fish. I mean, those are
Yes.
huge.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're not even fish. They're these, I mean, sea mammals, but they're so cool. I keep thinking, this is how nerdy I am. I keep thinking, I'm totally okay with the Bible saying Jonah got swallowed by a fish and it actually being a sea mammal. I don't have any problem with thinking that. But I'm like, so how would that technically work? How would a
You know,
person stay alive in a
exactly.
whale?
I that's actually what I'm sure a lot of people think. We're like, how?
Yeah, yeah. That's not one of the things that troubles my faith, but
No.
I'm kind of curious about it and how to make sense of all of that as more of a biology person.
Yep. Well, when you figure that out, let me know.
Will do. Sounds good. Well, we don't have those big whales inshore in the estuaries here in Florida, but we do have manatees, and we have lots of manatees. So I saw one yesterday, and then we
Oh.
have a lot of dolphin, a lot of these porpoises, and so I had one. They're actually a bit of a pain when you're out fishing because they stir everything up. They're hunting and feeding
Oh,
themselves, and so they scare everything away.
oh no.
Um, but I had one that was kind of trailing me in my kayak and came up pretty close to say hi. It's always cool to
Oh,
see them.
did you
Yeah.
get to pet him?
No, they don't come that close.
Okay. That's smart.
But what did I almost get? Oh, I could have. I had this great blue spotted eagle ray, which I mean they get like 100 or so pounds, so they're huge rays, and they
What? Whoa.
often come into these shallow bays and estuaries. And I was wading in the water, and one swam past me, feeding with its mouth open, and it
Whoa.
was like I could have, if I had thrown my body outward a little bit, I could have touched it, but I didn't. It looked so peaceful, and I thought it was just such a gift to see the thing that I wasn't going to try to harass it that way.
Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. We don't have mountains, but we have a lot of great marine wildlife down here.
So you look down a lot.
Yes, yes. Yep. There was some sea turtles. One actually almost swam into me. It was the cutest thing. I was about waist deep in water, and this little sea turtle, like, not, I don't know how big it was, like, whatever. It was just swimming, and I think it was distracted, and it almost swam right into me, saw me at the last minute as I was like, what is this thing doing? And like, it freaked out, the poor little thing, but it was
No.
so cute freaking out because it had its flippers and it was like, run away! It was great.
Oh my God.
So I could
That's
have
like,
picked that one up, but I was like, nah, it's okay. You're scared.
oh, that's a dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man.
So Florida, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times,
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's awesome too. Yeah. Um, I
which
actually,
has only been in the news in the United States. Sorry, go ahead.
oh no, what? It did? How come?
Oh no, because of the murder hornets.
Right. Okay. Sorry.
But yes.
Um, I was just saying, um, I actually was able to check off a bucket list item when I was in Indonesia before
Oh, cool.
I actually released baby turtles into the ocean
Whoa, that's
in Bali.
awesome.
Yeah,
Oh wow,
it
wow,
was
that's really
so
cool.
amazing. They're
Were they like the
tiny.
little? Yeah. Oh,
So
that's
that
great.
was
Were there a
amazing.
lot of crabs and seagulls around?
I don't think so. We didn't see any
Okay.
crabs, and I think there were a lot of people because they had
Okay.
like I think 100. And so we
Cool.
were all given like a little Tupperware with a little turtle in, and then they put a line in the sand
Oh,
and had us like all line up behind the line, and then they say, all right, and they taught us how to release the turtles safely. And they're like, all right,
nice.
3, 2, 1, and we're like, yay! And then everybody's like cheering these like little turtles on. It was amazing.
Oh, so you got to watch them race into the
Yeah.
ocean. Oh, that's
And
cute.
and I prayed for mine. I was like,
Oh, that's awesome.
oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Well, yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
these things don't always make it through to adulthood, so a
Yeah.
prayer is probably a very helpful thing.
I know they're telling us the stats of survival.
Mm,
So,
hmm
um,
hmm
so I wanted to ask, how in the world, how did you get here? You know what I mean? Like, you're on a couple boards, and you are just really on a global scale, really working on the environment and the issues around, and also education, right? So
hmm
how did you get here?
Mm. Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure how short of a question it is. Well, I
Okay.
mean, I grew up loving God's creation, loving nature. Although I grew up in Singapore, which is one big city largely, so that's I don't we don't know how that really happened. But anyway, but it was pretty disconnected from my faith until I went to college, and I
Mm,
went to a Christian college outside of Chicago called Wheaton, and so I got to take some theology classes, and my professors in those classes really helped connect the dots between the world that we live in and what and our
mm,
relationship to it and what and how God's relationship to the world. And I realized all of a sudden this was a huge blind spot in my faith,
mhm,
that God created us in order to represent God and God's will and interests in the world and to care for it, and to be
mm,
responsible for it. And so that was the first time I was able to think, oh, actually being actively involved in the natural world, the non-human world, is part of my discipleship and it's part of my witness as a follower of Christ.
mm.
Um, and so that was transformative for me because up to this point I'd always thought, oh, this is just a personal passion that's kind of like a hobby. But now I
Yeah.
realize, oh, this could be missional,
Yeah.
for me and for the world. And
Okay.
so that was very empowering. Also, I learned in some of my other classes how, environmental problems are people problems. And
Mm,
when the earth isn't healthy, the people aren't healthy. We're part of creation. And so what happens to the rest of creation, it comes back and impacts us. And what we do to the rest of creation
right.
has consequences for us too.
Yeah.
And so connecting those dots, because I always also care deeply about people and have always been very concerned with all of the socioeconomic human challenges that we face.
Hmm.
And this helped me connect the
Right.
dots. I'm like, oh, working on the environment is one of the big ways in this day and age that we can really improve people's lives too.
Mm.
And so it all kind of came together for me from that point. So it was during undergrad, and I had lots of
Wow.
experiences. And I never, I don't know, I'm a planner by personality.
Awesome.
Uh, yes, I wouldn't say I'm a planner by expertise or profession like you are. I think you're at a whole different level than
Like,
I am.
I appreciate
But
it
I
though.
prefer, thanks. I'm more of a planner out of anxiety. I
Oh,
tend to be anxious by personality.
me
Yeah,
too.
all right. So maybe, yeah. So planning helps reduce the anxiety because you kind of control more of
Exactly.
the unknown variables and like anyway, but none of the plans that I had for my life worked out.
Oh, oh.
I mean, I just, I never planned for the path that I was on. I'm really
Right.
grateful and excited about it. It's not like I was disappointed that things didn't work out, but new things happened and doors opened that I didn't know existed,
Wow.
and one thing led to the next. So I feel like I'm always planning, but then it's always a matter of trying to pay attention to what God seems to be doing
Right.
and being willing to take the next step, even or especially when that next step is scary for someone like me, or feels intense and overwhelming.
Yeah. Right.
So that's really, what happened. I just started volunteering with different organizations, and then I started working for different organizations.
Hmm.
And then through some of the relationships I had, I got invited to be on a board. And then I realized that, oh, sometimes boards just talk a lot and it's really frustrating. It just feels like a waste of time. We're not getting anything done. And then
Yep.
when I got asked if I would like to chair the board, I was like, me? But then I thought,
Whoa.
well, but then then I can't complain, because then if the boards aren't productive, that's my
Ooh.
fault. So then, that's when the planning part of me comes in really handy, because I
Oh.
think to chair a board, a lot of
Yeah.
times you have to be good at making a to-do list and then
Mhm.
getting it done.
Yes.
And I can do that. So it was really intimidating at first, especially
Yeah.
since, a lot of times folks like us, at least in the past, less now, but still to some extent, we're the youngest people in the room.
Yeah.
Most people have all these big degrees and all
Yep.
these big positions and all. But I was like, yeah, but I can get things done. I can keep a to-do list. And so I just saw that more as an opportunity to serve the institutions and the people
Mm.
around me that I really care about by helping to facilitate processes that accomplish things. And then it went
Wow.
from there. And then I got involved in writing, which was completely unexpected too. And I
Yeah.
thought, oh, this sounds great. This sounds exciting. I want to write things that aren't just graded, but I actually like get out there and hopefully contribute in some way. And that's hard.
Wow, way to go. So you've written how many books and what are they called and what are they about?
I've written three
Like,
books. The first one's Green Revolution. The first two are with University Press, who I love working with.
woohoo.
Green Revolution, and that's about how we can come together to care for creation, because the problems are so much bigger than any of us
Mm,
individually, and so we really need to work together.
yeah.
So I shared a lot of the stories. All of these books, so I don't consider myself, I've written, but I don't consider myself a writer necessarily.
Hmm.
But I see writing as a way to tell the story about what's going on and what
Hmm.
the work that we're doing, but also the people that I'm meeting along the way and all the other work that I'm learning about that's really inspiring and encouraging and helpful. And so that's why I've written these books. The second
Wow.
one was Doing Good Without Giving Up, which I wrote after about 10 years involved in more activism, advocacy related work,
Wow.
and seeing a lot of the people who started down that path with me as younger,
Hmm.
new undergrads, full of enthusiasm and idealism, and then as time goes on, a lot of folks burn out or drop out, or
Right.
they decide they want a particular kind of American dream life or whatever it is, and there are all
Mm,
these different paths people take. But a lot of them ended up veering away from staying committed to the work that we felt called to when we were younger. And so,
wow.
and personally, I struggle a lot with discouragement and being overwhelmed and
Mm,
weariness, and so just kind of
yeah.
wanted to think through and reflect through what were the things that we learned,
Wow.
about how we can continue to stay faithful when the world can be a tough place and when working for change is not the glamorous thing that sometimes we wish it was. So that was the second one. And then the third book, um, it was really fun to write, and I got to write it with a good friend, Ron Sider, who's um,
Wow.
several decades older than me. But it was an
That's amazing.
intergenerational dialogue that we had about key issues that we saw the church grappling with, especially social, political issues.
Mm,
And we wanted just to talk across the generations about those things and what the future could look like in terms of how
so
we
cool.
engage them. So that was a lot of fun. And that's what led to me being involved with the group Ron founded, Christians for Social Action. And so now he and I co-chair that board together, and we work with an excellent
Really?
executive director, Nikki Toyamaseto, who's
Yes.
just, she's a baller. She's just
I
doing
love
excellent work.
Nikki.
Yes,
Yeah.
she is terrific. And so
Yes.
we get to just support and cheer on the great work that she and the staff are doing in this next iteration of what used to be Evangelicals for Social Action and is now Christians for Social Action.
Yeah, I like it. I was thinking about your name change, like as I was getting ready for
Mm,
interview, and I was like, wow, that's like a smart move.
thanks.
So, yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
more appropriate.
Yeah. What can I ask why you think that? Because I've gotten a lot of questions about it.
Oh,
I
really?
think well, I've just gotten a lot of like more people intrigued about, oh, wow, that's a significant change. I mean, we're a 40-year-old organization, so
Hmm.
we were Evangelicals for Social Action for a while. Anyway, yeah, I don't know.
So why?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, evangelicals are just a smaller group within a larger group of Christians. And so instead of focusing on a smaller group, why don't you? And I was like, it just makes more sense to be way more inclusive to those who actually identify
Hmm.
as Christians. And then more people can get involved and feel like they belong and they can belong. And there are, of course, in the last 4 years, a lot of people who haven't been comfortable um, self describing themselves as evangelical. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I think it would be, I think it would isolate people unnecessarily, and feel like it's more of exclusive. So uh, English is a live language. It changes, the nuances
Yes.
change, and because of the current political situation, it's really been a struggle for, I think, the church in the U.S. And then, of course, because of what happens in the U.S., it influences the church around the world. On, well, at least definitely in Canada.
Mm.
So
Yeah, sorry.
thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, I know.
But it's good because then it means, like, hopefully, if people ask questions, it opens up the
Mhm.
conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And that's just hearing you say all of that. I'm like, were you in our board meetings when
Oh,
we were discussing this? I'm like, that's exactly why we chose to change. And we were concerned that some folks might think, oh, they're just like, they're running away from a label that's gotten complicated or they're scared or whatever it is. And I was like, no,
oh
it's
no,
really for us. And the word that, and Nikki helped us land on this word, the word that we kept circling around, I think, is for us, it's an act of hospitality where
exactly.
there are a lot of Christians out there who have never identified with the label evangelical, which is really a social movement label that came out of the United States in its current iteration. I mean, I
Mm,
know it has a history in England and all much beyond us, but
mm,
and it has gotten polarizing, and in many
yep,
spaces has gotten toxic, and a lot of people have been hurt from their background and experience in it. And we want to continue to be hospitable to all kinds of people, especially communities of color, many of whom their
hmm,
churches and their church backgrounds have never really identified with or connected with the label evangelical. And as Christians for Social Action, as we continue to moving forward and working with the communities that we're working on the issues that we're working on, we thought this is an unnecessary barrier
correct.
to
Yeah,
folks joining us and for us to connect with and be able to serve others. And so we thought, well, why would we? It's yeah, why
that's
wouldn't we just change that?
unnecessary. Yeah, it's awesome. Like when you can remove barriers when you can, and so
Hmm.
also I
Especially
think
ones as basic or simple as like we took the decision very carefully and we thought
I'm
about it a
sure.
lot and we talked to a lot of
Yes.
people about it. But at the end of the day, it seemed like a clear decision we could make.
Yeah.
So I'm
Well, and
glad.
you have stakeholders. You need to make sure that everybody's on board. And anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been around
Oh yeah,
these
no, I
spaces.
know.
No, no, it's good. And we've had such positive feedback. We didn't want to, there's always a risk that you can get captured by someone else to use in their narrative of what's going on in the church and politics and that sort of thing. And we didn't want to be used by other people who didn't really understand who we are and what we're doing and all.
Mm,
So we worked,
wow.
Christianity Today was interested in writing a story about the name change. And so we made ourselves available to them, and we thought they did a really fair job of trying to capture what it is we're trying to do there. So we're glad the word got out, I think, in the way that represented us pretty accurately.
Hmm.
And we've just had very positive feedback from everybody. So that's good.
Wow. And I'm a huge Nikki fan.
Yeah,
We
yeah, we
we
all
worked
are.
with together with InterVarsity, at the same time
Oh wow. Okay,
for
so you've known her
years.
a long time then.
Yeah, I mean, we're not
That's great.
like we didn't get to work super close, but yeah, she was the program director for Urbana, at least two Urbanas, and I was on the working on Urbana as well, and just really
Cool.
respect. She's a wise woman.
Yes.
So smart.
Yes. Yep, and certainly a leader for the times that we're in helping us to navigate change and vision our future within the context of our past. And
Mm,
and I don't know, I'm just learning so much from her in terms of
wow.
how she's guiding the organization with a rich history
Right.
uh, into this new season.
Well, I
We're
really
all
respect
really
that.
grateful.
Yeah, because you don't want to just cut from your history. You want to build on your history and then move forward from there. It's
Absolutely.
tempting though, I'm sure, just to like ditch it and like start again, but I don't think that's wise often. So,
Yeah. Well, and we have a history that we're really grateful for too. So
yeah.
thankfully we're not like trying to run away from anything, which is also a temptation when you have stuff that you just want to put behind you and move on. And that's also usually, I mean, a lot of folks try to ignore the past, but that's not good either.
Yep.
But in our case, I think ESA, Evangelical Social Action, accomplished a lot of really good things. I got to be a part of a lot of really good things that God was doing in the church and in this country in the past, and actually helped to launch the Evangelical Environmental Network, with which I
Hmm.
used to be on staff with. So done a lot
Oh,
of good. But yeah, moving forward, we wanted to continue to be positioned to be faithful in the changing times that we face, and so it's kind of a both and.
that's awesome. Well, what is it like to co-chair with Ron Sider?
Oh, it's really great.
Holy
uh,
moly.
because Ron is, I know, like sometimes when one becomes a prominent leader in any space, there can be a lot of ego issues that
Oof.
go along with that, and a lot of like, and I've always been discouraged when I see that happening,
Yeah.
and I've always been concerned that if I ever have any visibility, or to the extent that I have any influence, I don't want my ego to get in the way, and I don't, I just don't. That's not. It's anti-Christ like.
Yeah.
That's not the example we have, and so
Hmm.
Ron has been someone I've always looked up to on that front, because I've always just found him very approachable, accessible, and very humble.
Wow.
I've never seen a leader so quick to reflect on mistakes they might have made, no matter how big or small, and publicly apologize in very contrite and appropriate ways for things
Mhm.
that they wish they had done better or that they think they've done wrong. So I've just learned a lot from him. But all that to say is it's extremely easy to coach or something with him, because he's just
Yes.
so supportive and so empowering and
Oh,
so
good.
eager to listen and champion other people's ideas, whether or not they come from him or whether or not he gets any credit for it. That's not about it at all. And so I don't know if anyone ever gets a chance to work with folks like Ron. I think it's a huge gift and blessing, and then a model that we can pattern ourselves off of.
Oh my goodness. Yo, exactly. So I'm teaching this term, I don't know if you know, at a Christian university, Redeemer, and
Yeah.
a leadership course to like their third and fourth year business students. And you basically just said in that sentence everything we've been learning this term, especially because they're going to be, just starting off in their career. They're going to be young. But then as I was preparing for the class this summer, it really was heavy on my mind.
Mm,
How do you prepare leaders to be leaders in 2020?
mm,
Especially university students to move into and grow in their influence and their power and
hmm.
their leadership. So basically, I was really taking it so seriously. So then, yeah, like what advice would you give them?
Oh gosh. Oh, that's a big question. Well, maybe one thing that I could say right off the bat is make sure you find a mentor, and a mentor who you can be completely honest with, who has experience in some of the roles, not necessarily the same sector, but at least the types of roles that one is in. One of my mentors for many years, Peter Harris, was the founder of Arash. He's still my
Wow.
mentor, but
Wow.
he's been my mentor, one of my key mentors for over a decade now. And so he just has the level of history with me, and we have the level of trust and the communication that's gone on in the past that is just it's just become very fruitful and meaningful and life giving. And whenever, because we're always going to face challenges and we're always going to need to be held accountable. And the further along you get in areas of leadership and influence, the harder it is for other people to hold you accountable.
Mm,
And the more challenging situations you're going to have to navigate, and the more temptations you're going to face
right.
in
Wow.
navigating them with more selfish motivations or more self-promotional interest, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And so having people who can walk with you and call you out in a loving and trusting way, but then who can also lift you up when you feel beaten down
Hmm.
is, I think, so important. I think
Wow.
we have this model, and I know a lot of evangelical spaces, which I come out of, have this model where it's really this kind of solo leadership approach, and a lot of it's personality driven,
Hmm.
and that's so toxic. And we just see time and time and time and time again how that fails, and people get destroyed, and so much damage gets done.
Hmm.
And one of the greatest gifts in my life are the mentors that I've been able to have. And so folks like Ron and folks like Peter Harris. So that's one thing I would certainly say. And Paul talks about that. As Paul says, pattern yourself after me as I pattern myself after Christ. And
Yeah.
I think that's so, find mentors who are really pursuing Christ. And you can have more than one.
Yeah. And that's totally what we've been talking about is finding mentors. And also, they are mentoring. They're mentoring first year business students too. So
Nice. Oh,
that
that's
makes it
cool.
way more real. They're like, whoa, what I'm learning in class, I'm actually talking about with my mentees. And
Yeah.
so I was even like talking to them about like, okay, you are now going to be a person of influence, authority
Mm-hmm.
in their
Mm-hmm.
lives. Like, how are you going to position yourself? And like,
Mm-hmm.
are you going to be the perfect person, who has it all together and knows everything about everything? Or, and then we were just talking about vulnerability, about
Mm.
like, if you want your team or the people or your mentee to be vulnerable with you, you need to like model it, right? And go first
Mm-hmm.
and initiate that and just say, hey, guess what? You know, I struggle with that too. So let's
Mm-hmm.
walk together
Mm-hmm.
on that. And or yeah. So that's so interesting.
Yeah. Yep. Vulnerability is huge. And you're not just vulnerable with mentors, but also with people,
Hmm.
peers and people who journey along with you. And that's something I've always been very, very grateful for, is that no matter, especially as a single person
Hmm.
in different spaces, and different spaces where at this point in my life, there's a lot of pressure to be married, especially in the church. I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm okay. Like, it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
don't worry about me. We got other things to worry about. But I've always, one thing that people worry about is like, well, then you're just not going to have people around you. And no, and
Wow.
yeah, so I've always been really grateful to have good community around me,
Right.
even whatever stage I've been in, whatever role I've been in, and that's always been a gift, because then people are going to know. I mean, people who see you in and out, especially if they're housemates or
Oh
stuff
yes.
like that, you can't get away with anything.
No, because
I
they're like,
can't
no.
take I so when I hit writer's block, one great way to break through writer's block for me is to take a long hot shower, and then just ideas come in your head. But
I love it.
using a lot of water and a lot of energy to heat the water is not always the best environmental role model set. Well, I don't get away with that because I have
That is
some very
hilarious.
annoying housemates who will bang on the door.
Yo, princess, time to get out of the
Yep, yep,
shower.
yep. They're
Oh
like,
no.
all right, Mr. Environment.
Yeah. Drop, drip, drip,
Yes.
drip, all the water. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Although I think they leverage guilt as a motivator more often. It's like,
Whatever works,
hmm,
man. Whatever works.
I guess.
I had when I lived in Vancouver, I was studying at Regent, and I lived with three guys. Two med students and a nursing student, and me. I was a theology student,
Oh my goodness.
and
Wow.
I was the guinea pig, to be honest. Okay, but other than that, they just like really like redeemed my view of men. Not saying it was like terrible, but it was like, Wow, this is what it's like to live with guys who are awesome. Like they
That's
were like
great. That's good.
they're they totally like challenged me way more on recycling and about biking because I was just taking the bus everywhere and they're like,
Uh,
so now I'm a huge
mm,
cyclist because well,
cool.
I never had a car in Vancouver and then I just biked everywhere in the rain and I
Hmm.
just felt like I could conquer the world. And then it was also just me and
Yeah.
God. So that
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
amazing. So I just bike for hours each day and it was amazing. And there's hills in Vancouver. So I was in pretty great shape. So like it was because of my guy roommates.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I
that's
loved it.
awesome.
They were awesome. They were fun.
Yeah.
So I appreciate them.
Yeah.
We're still really good friends.
That's great. And that's, it's so important to be in community,
Hmm.
especially during times like this. And I know sometimes it's hard to start building community in times like this. So if you have community already developed around you, then you can just continue investing in it. But even now, there are ways to build community. I know a lot of
Yeah.
folks are more isolated during this season, and
Hmm.
and we feel it like. And we get weird when it's just us living on our own up to ourselves. Oh my goodness.
I
The
know.
eccentricities that develop.
I know. And I work from home. So
Yeah,
yeah.
me too.
So like,
But so I live with two other guys. We all work from home.
okay.
And until recently, both of them were they're lecturers at the university and fellow grad students. And so sometimes all three of us would need to be on Zoom teaching at the same time.
Uh-oh.
And we don't have a big space. And so there have been cases where one of them would go in the room and close the door in order to teach. And then I would be out and you figure it out. But
That's awesome. Oh, are you here? You're back? Can you hear me? Awesome. Sweet. Anyway, so that was interesting. Yeah, I just wanted, okay. I wanted to ask about like the human aspect. And so what, like on actually taking care of the environment. And so what have you learned and what would you tell people? Like what, I mean, you said like we all have a part to play. So what would that look like?
mm, yeah, and just confirming, are we caught up now on the feed? Like, is it
Yeah, I think
streaming? Okay,
so.
okay, good, good, good. Um, okay, sorry. I
Oh,
think
it's
we're
okay. Can you hear me?
okay. Yes.
Okay.
I think the Wi-Fi had some trouble. I'm off of it now. That's a really good question. It's a big question. And I see my friend Ashley is watching, and she and I both work for an organization called Arasha, which has come up
Awesome.
um, before in this conversation. But that's one really good group, especially in the United States and Canada, but really in many countries around the world, about 20 countries around the world. That would be a place for folks to turn to if they want to figure out how to care for the world around them better and live in better relationship with the people and the place that God has put them in. So in the United States, for instance, Arasha USA has a program called Love Your Place, which I mean,
Mm,
I love the name of it. I love the whole idea behind it.
yeah.
And it's a membership based program. You can check it out at the website online. And it just provides a lot of really great resources and a community of folks who are trying to be faithful and caring for the places that God has put them in. So, not everybody is going to be a fisheries biology freak like me or whatever else,
Yeah.
but everybody lives on this earth and everybody interacts with and depends on God, the rest of God's creation every day. And so,
Mm,
how
yeah.
can we be in better relationship with the world around us? And during times like this, where we're a little more restricted in our ability to get together and do things with lots of people and go places, how can we be connected to the creation around us and just live into that. I find, like, we talked a little bit about anxiety earlier. I find that as someone who feels more anxious a lot of the times, there's been a lot of things to be anxious about, a lot of
Yes.
things of which are out of my control. But
Right.
one thing that I remember Jesus teaching is when, if you feel anxious, pay attention to the birds and the flowers.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm paraphrasing there, but you go out into the world and you see the beauty and the goodness in it, in spite of all the hard and in spite of all the suffering. That doesn't
Yeah.
minimize or negate it, but you also see the good.
Hmm.
And that's really important and life-giving, and it's a source of hope when you see what God has made and how He's made us, and the roles that we get to play in all of it. So that's all. I would totally recommend checking out the work of Arasha and the resources that they offer. But some thoughts that more specific, concrete thoughts maybe I could offer. One is, we talked about guilt. Guilt helps you see when you're doing things that are not good. So
Uh-huh.
it can be a good corrective, but it's not, I think, a good long-term motivator.
Right.
And I think that's where we really need to lean into love
Hmm.
for God, love for each other, love for the rest of the world. That's
Wow.
what's going to keep us on this journey if we're doing it out of love. And then it becomes worship too.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh.
and then the other piece I would say is, it's helpful for me to think of how can, we talked about relationship with the rest of the world. How can I have a smaller environmental footprint, which we talk
Hmm.
about a lot, which is a smaller negative impact on the planet in
Right.
terms of how you use energy, water,
Consumption.
consumption, that sort of thing, how you produce waste. So how you have a smaller negative impact, a smaller footprint, but then how you have a larger handprint or a larger positive impact. Because we're
Mm.
not just created to be less of a curse. We're actually created to be a blessing to the world.
Blessing.
And
Right.
so let's not just try to focus on how we can do less damage, but how we can do more good.
Wow.
And that's where, we've done a lot of things with the landscaping around the house where I live in.
Mm.
We've done a lot more gardening, in other words, and created
Oh, yay.
habitat that welcome more species.
Yeah.
And then we've also gotten to see more species. And I'm not one of the fanatical birders who I love dearly, but I have been unexpectedly excited and thrilled by the
Yes.
number of new bird species that I've been able to see. And I also have to look them up most of the time because I'm like, that's a
Wow.
cool bird. What is that?
Yeah.
But by investing in the place around me, I've been able to see more of that happen. That's been really good too.
That's so cool.
A lot more that you can say here, I guess, but I would just totally recommend checking out the organizations who are doing this and providing resources in an ongoing way, because
Yeah.
that'll continue to only grow and be more helpful.
Hmm. Well, I am a very, very amateur dabbler birder. Like, I wish I was, but I know I just don't know what I'm doing. But I know that Arasha, Ontario has actually really introductory bird watching tips, and so that's
Yes,
really fun.
that's great.
And Lake Ontario is pretty cool. Like Toronto is pretty cool because as the birds migrate north,
Ah,
it's a landing spot after they've flown, not swum, over Lake Ontario. It's kind of a big lake, and
mm,
then as soon as they hit the shores in Toronto, they like rest and feed.
cool.
So spring around here is really fun. Yeah,
Nice.
and so I've gone down
Yeah.
on National Migratory Bird Day
Oh, nice.
and hung out with the birders.
Yeah, and that's it. There's always communities of folks who do these things.
Right.
And so, especially if it's outdoors and you can distance and that sort of thing, you can get together with a smaller group of folks and go birding, or
Yeah.
um, it's fun. I have a friend in Gainesville who's really gotten into herping, or catching reptiles and amphibians. Herpetology is the
What?
field. And so, I've always found them fascinating, but I'm not the kind of person who like goes looking for snakes to pick up. Like, I'll pick up a
No.
snake if it needs to be moved and if I'm doing it
Yeah.
carefully. But it's really fun going out with him and just learning about the snakes in our area, because he's not worried about getting bit, and he's really quick at telling the different species. He'll just chase this snake down that's slithering and just like grab it, and it's like,
No.
check this one out.
Okay, so my anxious heart just will not do that.
I know, but okay, and you might not even want to be with someone who is doing that. But for me, that's the sweet spot. It's like, I don't have to chase him down and pick him up, but I can watch someone do it. And then
Who
when the
knows
poor
what they're
snake has
doing?
calmed down and feels safe, then I can, maybe handle it a little bit or at least get
Wow.
closer to it.
Well, you really trust that person then.
Ah. Well, they're still alive, so
Yeah, okay, that's true. Oh no. That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I think that, well, also one of the lectures I was giving was about how do you promote change?
mm,
How do you influence people? And obviously we can use logic, you know what I mean? And you have, your science background. But the other
right.
one is tapping into people's emotions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes you can tap negatively and then just logic just flies out the window and
Hmm.
then people don't wear their masks, or something like that. But
Hmm.
hopefully you can also do that for the good through love and just tap into people's emotions and add it to science in
Yeah.
addition. So it's like a
Yeah.
two-pronged approach.
Yeah. And sometimes we tend to like dualisms or dichotomies. We tend to be kind of either or
Mhm.
people, but so much, and not everything, but so much is really both and I think we do this in the sciences. We sometimes assume too much when it comes to how rational we are as humans,
Hmm.
and how much we base our decisions off of reasoning. And a lot of times that's just, we have so much, ironically, we have so much data that shows
Yeah.
us that that's really not the case, and that we're very complicated beings,
Yeah.
and that our emotions are very real and very often very valid and often very important, and
Mhm.
uh, can be really beneficial to us becoming better people and living good lives.
Mhm.
Or if we're not careful, they can also be real hurdles to that. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, that's one of the fun things I like about social science, is just better understanding what influences our
Mhm.
attitudes, our values, our perceptions, and what's
Yeah.
effective for shaping those things. It's a lot more nuanced and complicated than I used to think when I was told, oh, you just change people's beliefs about the environment, give them good theology,
Right.
help them to see that caring for God's creation is just completely integrally biblical,
Right.
and then everything will flow from that. And I'm like,
That's right.
but then it doesn't.
But then no. But it's
Yeah.
education is one aspect.
Yes, necessary, but not always sufficient on its
Right.
own. And so
Yeah.
we try to treat people as whole people, full beings, whole beings, and
Yeah.
um, that's a
That's
lot.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really encouraged and it gives me hope that there's people like you
Thanks. And you gives me hope that there's
rolling
people
around the
like
world.
you out there. Because in many ways, I see the work you do as really helping to facilitate everybody else's work and helping to
Yeah.
empower what people are doing and just provide the connections and logistics and structure to implement
Hmm.
things and bring
Right.
people together in very real
Exactly.
ways.
Yeah. And it's been such a joy. So, so I asked my students to write their vision statements, and then they're like, "Professor, do you have a vision statement?" I was like, "Not a recent one."
Oh, those are hard.
Shoot. So then they're like, and I'm like, all right, apparently I'm writing my vision statement too. So I wrote one. But actually
Is it
it's based,
shareable yet, or is it still a work in
oh
progress?
sure. Oh no, I didn't plan that. All right, let's see, where did it go? But basically it's off of something I think God told me 3 years ago. And he gave me the words multiply and amplify.
Mm,
Because I really want to have more people, it's going to sound egotistical, more like people like me, because I don't think there's
hmm
people
hmm.
like me running around the world, and people keep asking me to train their people. So I
Yeah.
do want to do that. I want to start moving into offering the training, and
Mm,
then
that's cool.
and then amplify, because I really, and then also with whatever the race issues that were happening in 2020, but this happened for me like 3 years ago, of like, how do you amplify the voices that are out there that need to be heard? And so that's why I was like, all right, let's do these Instagram
Mm,
live things at least. So thanks for
yeah.
being part of that.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Thanks for having me. And
so here it is.
that makes complete sense. That doesn't sound egotistical at all. And you would know because you're running around the whole world doing all these conferences for all these different groups. And I'm sure it wouldn't be bad for you to have more colleagues who were
That's
trained
right.
and able to do that too. It's clearly important and needed work. So
Yo,
I think
thank
that's a
you very
great way
much.
to focus. Yeah.
So here it is. Ready, ready, ready. And I just
Yes.
wrote it literally yesterday, so
Oh
it's
wow.
draft.
All right. All right.
For 25 plus years, Anne's breadth of business experience and relational intelligence brings worlds together as a global strategist in systems development, project implementation, and training to empower businesses, organizations, and individuals around the world. Her industry experience, passion for innovation and collaboration continues to propel her to multiply and amplify the voices of global leaders towards a more hope-filled future.
That's awesome. I don't think that sounds too drafty. I think that sounds really thought out. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of been rolling around in my head for a while, right? So it kind of needed
Yeah.
to get out. Of
Yeah.
course, my students are like, "Where's your vision statement?" It's like,
Have they seen it yet?
yeah, I read it to them
Okay.
yesterday.
Oh, good.
And
Good.
what, yeah, and then of course with all the other students, they presented their vision statements, and then we had gave them some feedback.
Mm.
So then I opened myself up as well, of course.
Practicing
Some
that
feedback.
vulnerability.
That's right. It was really fun.
Cool.
Um, so thanks so much for coming to the end. I really appreciate,
Yeah.
honestly, just who you are and all of your work, and even in the grind when it's not glamorous and you can't take a hot shower. So I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks. I
So,
know. It's the strange little things.
yo, what are roommates for? So, yeah. So, can you tell me what about your future looks like? Any projects that you're working on that you're excited about?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm in a few different spaces, and so I feel like I'm juggling different things. But one of the things I'm really excited about, besides fishing, is I'm working to build out a new research project that's looking at Christian nationalism and authoritarianism and how that
So cool.
shapes how we engage around environmental climate issues, as well as further unpack and nuance how race is a predictor of different attitudes and engagement in these issues
Mm,
too. So I think
really?
there's a huge amount of really interesting and helpful work right now around Christian nationalism in the United
Mm,
States, as well as authoritarianism broadly, but also in the United States, and some of those things that overlap quite a bit. And so we're
mm,
really trying to apply the lessons being learned out in the broader social science field to our work and encouraging more environmental action and climate action. So that's one piece I'm really excited about there. I'm going to start looking for a job soon. I don't know. We'll see what's available. And
so,
uh,
anybody who's listening to Instagram,
yeah, right.
give this guy a job.
Absolutely. I redid my personal website so I'd be more ready to hit the job search. And then I did my CV and all. So we'll see. I mean, obviously I love research and I love teaching. So academia would be something that could be a fit.
Mm,
In some way, but I also spent a lot of time in the nonprofit sector, and I really like the kind of more outward facing, on the ground um, stuff that you get to do there. And so I suppose a sweet spot would be something that somehow bridges the two, some
well,
sort
you
of,
know that
center
Aracha,
or.
Ontario is looking for a director.
Yeah,
You
well,
probably,
that was the other trick is thinking about my commitment to the United States, which I had
ooh,
to confront when that job opening happened in Singapore, and I thought, do I want to apply for this? But then I had to think, if I managed to get it, would I do it? And everything was
right.
exciting about the position, except I've been so invested in the United States for so long now, in
Mm,
terms of the spaces that I'm contributing to and the relationships I
right.
have. And it's such a strategic and important and in many a place. And in many ways, we have so much ground to make up here that it almost
Mm,
seems like, I don't know, it's hard not to feel somewhat responsible, some
mm,
level of responsibility for continuing to invest in this
right. Yeah.
area. But never say never. So that's
Right.
good to know. And
Yeah.
of course, I'd
Just
love to
saying.
work with Arash in any capacity I can.
Yeah, and the position's been around and open for a bit because I think they're waiting for the right person. And Luke and I just had the director for Russia Canada. We just had lunch
Yeah.
last together.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you guys, because you're
Yeah,
not
that was
far from
really
him,
fun.
right?
Yeah, I teach basically just down the road. I teach
Nice.
up mountain from where he lives.
Words that we don't have to use in Florida.
And it's really hard for me to say that without giggling. Like,
Right.
you live where?
It's
Well,
like
that's
downhill
awesome.
or uphill, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I'll totally like check out your website. That'd be great. And
yeah.
is it ready or
Yeah, yeah, it's out there, benlow.net. Um,
awesome?
although, someone like you might have good ideas on how to improve it, but it's out there. And
Yeah, I'm
try
working
I
on mine
try to
too.
somewhere. Oh gosh, it's intense because like I'm
Yeah.
very anti self-promotional. And so how do you
Me too.
have your own website to serve a purpose without it being all about promoting oneself?
But when I do, if I, theoretically am coming to your website, I want
Hmm.
to know about you. So that is the
Exactly.
time where you get to brag a little bit about what you're up to. So
Yeah, or at least I try to just very plainly offer up the things that I've done or the things that I'm involved in and let people evaluate whether they
that's right.
like it or not. But
Here it is.
yes, try not to
Yes, you will.
try to reduce the amount of marketing that goes out of that side and just be like it's kind of like a CV but in a website. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, with more
No, I
pictures.
totally like it. You can totally look at mine. It's not finished at all either. It's still being built.
Cool.
So you can let me know what you think too.
What is your website?
Oh, it's Anchow Project Management
Oh, okay,
dot
cool.
com.
.com. .com was
Yes.
taken for me.
Oh,
But I was choosing between benlow.net and benlow.org, and I was like, well, .org makes me feel like an organization. That's just weird. But then .net, I was like, I kind of like fishing, so .net.
I like it. I
It's
like it.
ridiculous, but
I like it. That's
that
awesome.
swung my decision.
That's great.
Yeah,
Well, have an awesome Thanksgiving
you
and
too.
have a
Well,
great.
y'all had your Thanksgiving already, right?
Yeah,
All
been there,
right.
done that, wrote a book
Yeah.
about it.
We'll
Well,
try to have a
actually,
good one on here.
Thanksgiving was canceled here because
Yeah.
they didn't want people getting together. So,
Well, they
yeah.
might should have canceled it here, but no, I think there's a lot of travel going on, and
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, it'll be good.
All
I'll get
right.
on the water more. But great to see you and catch up
You
as
too.
always.
Thank you
And
so much for
thanks
your
for
time.
everybody who joined us today.
Yeah, it's gonna go on as well, my Instagram Live, but also YouTube. So I'll give you the link for that.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay.
Thanks, Ed.
Bye.
See
God
ya.
bless.